Hello, my friend. Welcome back to our channel. How are you today? I hope you are doing great, and I hope you're ready for a truth that most people never want to face, because it's not comfortable, but it's incredibly powerful. We often look outside ourselves for our biggest enemy. We blame other people, bad luck, difficult situations, or unfair circumstances. But there is one enemy more powerful than all of these combined, and it lives inside you, your own uncontrolled mind. Today, we are starting a brand new 6-lesson series about this exact truth, about how your mind, when left unchecked, can quietly become your greatest obstacle, and how you can learn to take back control. Before we begin, do one small thing for me. Press the like button. It takes only 1 second for you, but it means the whole world to us. Okay, are you ready? Let's begin. Lesson 1. The mind you don't control will control you. Let me tell you about two people, person A and person B. Both faced the exact same setback in the same week. They both lost an important opportunity they had worked hard for. Person A allowed his mind to run wild. The moment he heard the news, his thoughts spiraled instantly. I always fail. I'm not good enough. This proves I'll never succeed. He replayed these thoughts again and again, all day, all night. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't focus. Within days, his uncontrolled thoughts had convinced him to give up completely on his bigger goal. Person B received the exact same setback. For a moment, she felt the same disappointment, the same sting of failure. But instead of letting her mind run wild, she paused. She noticed the thought, "I always fail," appear, and she consciously questioned it. Is that actually true? Or am I just disappointed right now? She allowed herself to feel the emotion, without letting it write the whole story. Within a few days, she was already looking for her next opportunity. Same setback, same initial pain, completely different outcomes. The difference wasn't the situation. The difference was who controlled the mind and who was controlled by it. This is the deepest truth about your uncontrolled mind. It doesn't just react to your life, it actively shapes it. Left unchecked, your mind will replay old fears, exaggerate small problems, and convince you of things that simply are not true. And because these thoughts happen inside your own head, they often feel completely real, even when they are not. Most people assume their thoughts are facts. If the mind says you're not capable, they believe it without question. If the mind says, "This will never work," they accept it as truth. But thoughts are not facts. Thoughts are simply mental events, and you have far more power over them than you've been taught to believe. Your mind, when uncontrolled, will always choose the path of fear, doubt, and old habits, because that is the path of least resistance. It takes conscious effort to interrupt this pattern. But that effort is exactly what separates people who stay stuck from people who grow. Here are 3 simple truths about taking back control of your mind. First, notice your thoughts. Don't automatically believe them. A thought is not proof of truth. It's simply a mental habit, one you have the power to question. Second, create space between a thought and your reaction. Even a few seconds of pause can change your entire response to a difficult situation. Third, your mind will always offer you fear first. That's not a flaw. It's a default setting. Your job is to consciously choose a better thought again and again. Remember this, my friend. Your mind is a powerful tool, but a tool must be directed to be useful. Left completely uncontrolled, Even the most powerful mind can become your greatest enemy. Let's do a quick recap. An uncontrolled mind doesn't just react to life. It actively shapes your reality through unquestioned thoughts and fears. Learning to notice and question your thoughts is the first step toward taking back control. Here is your challenge for today. The next time a strong negative thought appears, pause before believing it completely. Ask yourself, is this actually true? Or is this just my uncontrolled mind reacting? You are not your thoughts, my friend. You are the one who has the power to observe them, question them, and choose differently. Lesson 2. Fear is a liar that speaks in a convincing voice. There is something dangerous about fear, and it's not what most people think. Fear's greatest power isn't that it stops you. Its greatest power is that it convinces you it's protecting you, right before it quietly steals your opportunities. Let me tell you about two people, Person A and Person B, who both had the chance to speak in front of an audience for the first time. Person A felt fear rise inside him the morning of the event. His mind whispered, "You'll forget your words. People will laugh at you. You're not ready for this." He listened closely to every word. By the afternoon, he had convinced himself to cancel completely, telling himself he would try next time when he felt more prepared. Person B felt the exact same fear that same morning. Her heart raced too. Her hands felt just as shaky. Her mind whispered the same doubts. What if you fail in front of everyone? But instead of obeying the fear, she simply acknowledged it. She said to herself, "I hear you, fear, but I'm doing this anyway." She walked on stage with shaking hands and a racing heart, and she spoke anyway. Notice something important here. Both people felt fear. The fear itself wasn't the difference. The difference was that Person A treated fear as a command, while Person B treated fear as simply noise. Something to acknowledge, but not necessarily obey. This is one of the most important truths about your uncontrolled mind. Fear rarely tells the truth about your actual ability. Fear exaggerates. Fear predicts disaster that almost never comes true. Fear convinces you that safety means staying exactly where you are, even when staying there is quietly costing you your dreams. Think about how fear operates. It rarely says, "You might struggle a little, but you'll figure it out." Instead, it says, "You will completely fail, and it will be humiliating." It rarely says, "This is uncertain, but worth trying." Instead, it says, "This is dangerous, don't even attempt it." Fear speaks in extremes, because extremes are what keep you frozen in place. And here's the part almost nobody tells you. Fear is often loudest right before growth, not right before disaster. The nervous feeling before speaking a new English sentence, before starting a new habit, before chasing a new goal, is very often simply the sensation of growth wearing fear's costume. Let's talk about 3 simple truths about facing the lies of fear. First, fear speaks with confidence. But confidence is not the same as truth. Just because a thought feels urgent and certain doesn't mean it's accurate. Second, fear almost always exaggerates the outcome. The actual result of trying is rarely as catastrophic as fear predicts it will be. Third, you don't need to eliminate fear before acting. You simply need to act while fear is still present. Courage was never the absence of fear, it's action taken alongside it. Remember this, my friend. Fear's job is to protect you from all risk, even the risks worth taking. But a life truly worth living requires taking some risks fear will always object to. Let's do a quick recap. Fear often exaggerates danger and convinces you to stay safely stuck, even when growth requires stepping forward anyway. The people who succeed aren't fearless. They've simply learned to act despite fear's loud objections. Here is your challenge for today. Identify one thing fear has been quietly talking you out of. Today, take one small step toward it anyway, even while the fear is still present. You don't have to wait for fear to disappear, my friend. You simply have to stop letting it drive. Lesson 3. The voice in your head is not always your friend. There is a voice that speaks to you constantly, all day, every day. It comments on everything you do. It judges your mistakes. It predicts your failures before you've even started. And because this voice speaks in your own thoughts, in your own mental tone, most people never question it. They simply assume it's telling the truth. But here's something important to understand. The voice in your head is not always on your side. Think about how easily this inner voice criticizes you for things you would never say to another person. If a friend made a small mistake, you would probably say, "It's okay, everyone makes mistakes." But when you make that same mistake, the voice in your head often says something much harsher. "You're so careless. You always mess things up. Why can't you get this right?" If this same voice belonged to another person standing next to you, constantly criticizing your every move, doubting your every decision, and predicting your failure before you even try, you would likely walk away from that person immediately. You wouldn't tolerate that kind of treatment from anyone else. And yet, many people allow this exact voice to live inside their own mind, unquestioned, for years. This inner voice becomes especially loud in moments of growth. When you try to speak a new English sentence, it whispers, "That sounded wrong, everyone probably noticed." When you attempt something new, it whispers, "You'll probably fail, just like before." Left unchecked, this voice doesn't just comment on your life. It starts to shape your decisions, quietly convincing you to shrink, to stay quiet, to avoid trying at all. The problem isn't that this voice exists. Every person has an inner critical voice. This is completely normal. The real problem begins when you stop noticing it as a voice and start believing it as truth. Here are 3 simple truths about managing the voice in your head. First, notice the tone of your inner voice. Would you allow a friend to speak to you that way? If not, you don't have to accept it from your own mind either. Second, separate the voice from your identity. The voice saying, "I always fail," is not a fact about who you are. It's simply a thought passing through your mind. Third, practice replacing harsh self-talk with the same kindness you would offer someone you care about. This isn't about ignoring mistakes. It's about responding to them with encouragement instead of cruelty. Remember this, my friend. You would never let a stranger speak to you the way your own inner critic sometimes does. Your mind deserves the same respect and kindness you would offer to someone you love. Let's do a quick recap. Your inner voice is not always accurate or kind, and left unquestioned, it can quietly shape your confidence and decisions. Learning to notice this voice and respond to it with more compassion is a powerful step toward controlling your mind instead of being controlled by it. Here is your challenge for today. The next time your inner voice criticizes you harshly, pause and ask yourself, would I say this to someone I love? If not, Choose kinder words instead. You are allowed to be your own friend, my friend, especially in the moments your mind forgets how to be kind. Lesson 4. Your mind will believe whatever you repeat. There is a simple mechanism inside your mind that most people never learn to use on purpose. And because of that, it often works against them instead of for them. Your mind does not naturally separate truth from repetition. Whatever you say to yourself often enough, your mind eventually accepts as fact, whether it's actually true or not. Think about how this plays out in daily life. If you say, "I'm terrible at English" enough times, even as a joke, even casually, your mind slowly stops questioning it and starts defending it. You begin noticing every mistake as proof, while ignoring every small success as an exception. Not because it's objectively true, but because you've repeated it so often that your mind has accepted it as settled fact. This is exactly how limiting beliefs are built. Nobody is born believing they're not capable, not smart enough, not disciplined enough. These beliefs are constructed slowly, sentence by sentence, repeated thought by repeated thought, often without you even realizing it's happening. But here is the empowering side of this same mechanism. If repetition can build a limiting belief, repetition can also build an empowering one. The same mental process that convinced you of your weaknesses can be redirected to convince you of your strengths, simply by choosing deliberately what you repeat. This doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect or ignoring real mistakes. It means being intentional about your inner language. Instead of saying, "I always mess this up," you might say, "I'm still learning this, and I'm improving." Instead of saying, "I'm not a confident person," you might say, "I'm becoming more confident every time I practice." The situation may be identical, but the sentence you repeat quietly determines which belief takes root. Here are 3 simple truths about directing what your mind repeats. First, notice the sentences you say about yourself most often. These repeated sentences, more than any single event, are quietly shaping your self-belief. Second, replace absolute language with growth language. Words like always and never lock a belief in place. Words like still learning and becoming leave room for change. Third, repetition takes time to rewire a belief, just as it took time to build the original one. Be patient with new, empowering thoughts, the same way you'd be patient with any new skill. Remember this, my friend. Your mind isn't judging whether a thought is true before accepting it. It's simply listening to what you repeat and building your reality around it. Choose your repeated words with care. Let's do a quick recap. Your mind accepts repeated thoughts as fact, whether they're empowering or limiting, true or false. By intentionally choosing what you repeat about yourself, you can slowly reshape your own beliefs. Here is your challenge for today. Notice one limiting sentence you say about yourself often, and replace it today with a growth-based version. Repeat the new sentence, even if it doesn't feel fully true yet. Your mind is always listening to you, my friend. Make sure what you're telling it is worth becoming true. Lesson 5. An uncontrolled mind creates problems that don't even exist yet. There is a strange and troubling ability that your mind possesses, one that most people never fully recognize until they examine it closely. Your mind does not only react to real problems happening in front of you, it has the power to create entire problems that don't exist yet, and then force you to suffer through them anyway, as if they were already true. This is called anticipatory anxiety, and it's one of the clearest signs of an uncontrolled mind at work. Let me explain what this actually looks like in daily life. Imagine you have an important conversation scheduled for tomorrow. Maybe asking for something you want, or speaking in front of people, or facing a situation that feels uncertain. A controlled mind would think about it briefly, prepare what's necessary, and then let it rest until the moment arrives. But an uncontrolled mind does something very different. It replays the conversation over and over, hours before it even happens. It imagines the worst possible outcome, again and again. It creates arguments that haven't occurred, embarrassments that haven't happened, and failures that exist nowhere except inside your own thoughts. By the time the actual moment arrives, you've already suffered through it mentally, sometimes dozens of times, even though none of it was ever real. And here's the cruel irony. Many times, the real event turns out completely fine, sometimes even good. But your mind forced you to experience the pain of failure long before there was ever any evidence that failure was coming. Let me tell you about two people, Person A and Person B, who both had a job interview scheduled for the same week. Person A spent the 3 days before his interview replaying every possible way it could go wrong. He imagined forgetting his words. He imagined the interviewer's disappointed face. He imagined walking out feeling like a failure. Each night, instead of resting, his mind ran through these imagined failures again and again. By the time the actual interview arrived, he was mentally and emotionally exhausted, having already failed the interview dozens of times in his own head before it even began. Unsurprisingly, his nervous energy affected his actual performance, and the interview went poorly, partly because he arrived already defeated. Person B had the same interview on the same week with the same level of experience. When worried thoughts appeared, she noticed them, but she consciously chose not to feed them. Instead, she prepared practically, practiced her answers, and then redirected her mind toward rest and calm whenever the anxious thoughts tried to take over. She said to herself, "I don't know what will happen, and that's okay. I'll handle it when it actually arrives." She arrived at her interview calm, present, and clear-headed, because she hadn't spent her mental energy suffering through imaginary failures beforehand. Both people faced identical uncertainty, but one person's uncontrolled mind manufactured suffering that didn't need to exist, while the other person's controlled mind preserved her energy for the moment that actually mattered. This is perhaps one of the most exhausting habits of an uncontrolled mind. It doesn't wait for real problems to arrive before making you suffer. It manufactures pain in advance, based purely on imagination, and then presents that imagined pain as if it were already a certainty. The truth is, most of what we fear never actually happens the way we imagined it. And even when difficult things do happen, we are almost always more capable of handling them in the actual moment than our anxious imagination gives us credit for. Anticipation is almost always worse than reality, because anticipation has no limits, no boundaries, and no actual facts to work with. It simply spirals, feeding on itself, growing larger with every repetition. Here are 3 simple truths about protecting your mind from imaginary suffering. First, notice when you're solving a problem that doesn't exist yet. If nothing has actually happened, you are not reacting to reality, You are reacting to imagination. Second, prepare practically, but don't rehearse suffering. There's a difference between reasonable preparation and repeatedly imagining worst-case outcomes. One helps you, the other exhausts you for nothing. Third, bring your mind back to the present moment whenever it drifts into imagined future failure. The present moment rarely contains the disaster your mind is predicting. Remember this, my friend. Your mind is powerful enough to make you suffer through events that may never even happen. That same power, redirected, is powerful enough to keep you calm, present, and prepared instead. The choice of how to use that power belongs entirely to you. Let's do a quick recap. An uncontrolled mind often creates suffering in advance through imagined worst-case scenarios that haven't actually occurred. Learning to notice imaginary fear and gently return your focus to the present moment protects your energy for what's real. Here is your challenge for today. The next time you notice yourself worrying about something that hasn't happened yet, pause and ask yourself, is this real right now? Or is this my mind creating a problem in advance? Then gently bring your attention back to this present moment. You don't have to suffer twice, my friend. Once in your imagination and once in reality. Choose to save your strength for what's actually in front of you. Lesson 6. The person who controls their mind controls their life. We have spent 5 lessons uncovering the many ways an uncontrolled mind quietly works against us. We've seen how it convinces us of things that aren't true, how fear speaks with false confidence, how our inner voice can be harsher than we'd ever allow from another person, how repeated thoughts become accepted beliefs, and how our mind can manufacture suffering over problems that don't even exist yet. Today, in our final lesson, I want to bring all of this together and show you what becomes possible once you finally take control. Let me tell you about 2 people, Person A and Person B, who both years ago started at the exact same point in life. Same background, same opportunities, same starting circumstances. But over 10 years, their lives moved in completely different directions, and the reason had almost nothing to do with luck, talent, or circumstances. The real difference was this. One of them learned to control their mind, and the other one let their mind control them. Person A allowed every setback to become a story about his limitations. When something difficult happened, his mind immediately said, "This is proof I'm not capable." And he believed it without question. When fear appeared before an opportunity, he obeyed it completely, staying safely inside his comfort zone, year after year. His inner voice grew louder and harsher over time because he never once questioned it. Small mistakes became permanent identities in his mind. "I failed once" slowly became, "I'm a failure." 10 years passed, and Person A found himself in almost the exact same place he started, still waiting for the day his mind would finally feel ready, a day that never seemed to arrive. Person B faced the same kinds of setbacks, the same fears, the same harsh inner voice in the beginning. But somewhere along her journey, she learned something important. Her mind's first reaction was not always the truth. She began noticing her thoughts instead of instantly obeying them. When fear appeared, she acknowledged it and moved forward anyway. When her inner critic spoke harshly, she gently questioned it and chose kinder, more accurate words instead. When her mind tried to manufacture imaginary disasters, she brought herself back to the present moment again and again. None of this happened perfectly or overnight, but over 10 years, these small daily choices compounded into an entirely different life. Not because her mind became silent. Everyone's mind stays noisy, but because she was no longer controlled by that noise. This is the deepest truth of this entire series. Your mind will always produce fear, doubt, harsh criticism, and imagined disaster. This is simply what an untrained mind naturally does. This will likely never fully disappear, for you, for me, or for anyone. But you are not required to obey every thought your mind produces. You have the power to notice, question, and choose. And that power, practiced daily, is what separates a life controlled by fear from a life lived with genuine freedom. Think of your mind like a wild horse. Left completely uncontrolled, a wild horse runs wherever fear or instinct pulls it, often into danger, often in circles, rarely toward any meaningful destination. But a horse that has been patiently trained doesn't become weaker or less powerful. It becomes more useful, more directed, capable of carrying you exactly where you intend to go. Your mind holds the same raw power, whether controlled or not. The difference is direction. This is why controlling your mind isn't about suppressing your thoughts or pretending negative emotions don't exist. It's about developing a relationship with your own mind where you are the one making the final decision, not simply reacting to whatever thought happens to appear first. Let's talk about 3 final truths to carry with you from this series. First, your mind will never stop producing fear, doubt, and criticism completely. The goal isn't a silent mind, it's a mind you no longer blindly obey. Second, every single day offers new opportunities to practice this control. Small moments of doubt, fear, or harsh self-talk, each one a chance to choose differently than before. Third, the compound effect applies here too. Each time you question a fearful thought instead of obeying it, each time you replace harsh self-talk with encouragement, you are quietly building a stronger, more disciplined mind, one small choice at a time. Remember this, my friend. The biggest battles in life are rarely fought against other people or unfair circumstances or difficult situations. The biggest battle is fought quietly, internally, between the version of you that wants to obey every fearful thought and the version of you that has learned to pause, question, and choose something better. Let's do a quick recap of everything we've learned in this series. An uncontrolled mind shapes your reality through unquestioned thoughts. So learning to notice and question your thinking is where real control begins. Fear exaggerates and speaks with false confidence. But courage means acting anyway. Your inner voice deserves the same kindness you'd offer someone you love. Repeated thoughts become beliefs, so choose your inner language with intention. And your mind can manufacture suffering over things that haven't even happened. So returning to the present moment protects your energy for what's real. Here's your final challenge, my friend. Starting today, treat your mind like a skill you are training, not a master you must obey. Notice one thought today, question it gently, and choose a better one in its place. Your biggest enemy was never truly outside of you, my friend. And this means your greatest power was never outside of you either. Take back control of your mind, one thought at a time, and watch how much of your life quietly begins to change. And that brings us to the end of today's journey, my friend. We learned that your biggest enemy was never outside of you. It was the uncontrolled thoughts, fears, and inner criticism you never questioned. And now, You have the power to change that. If these words gave you clarity today, please share this video with someone who needs to hear that they are not their thoughts. And if you believe your mind deserves to be trained, not obeyed, this channel is a must-follow for you. We don't just teach English here. We teach life-changing lessons that can transform the way you think, speak, and live. So please, subscribe today. Not just for us, but for the calmer, stronger mind you are learning to build. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take back control, my friend, one thought at a time. Take care, and see you soon.